Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to this session where we're going to talk about the booking system Hallmaster, and we're lucky enough to have representatives from a hall, Little Paxton Village Hall, where they have already purchased this system, and I have been running it, I believe, for about the last couple of years. So I'm going to hand over to Bernard from Hallmaster, and he's going to explain to us about the products that they offer. So Bernard, welcome this morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thanks for turning up. It's nice to see some faces again. So what I'm going to do is just run a little 90-second video, a little animation of what we do, just to give you an overview about what the system can do, and then I'll go through a bit more in depth. I don't want to steal Brian's thunder because he's prepared a very comprehensive presentation, so there may be a bit of crossover of what we're about to say. So I'll just share my screen. Should all be in blue to start with. Okay, so may need your speakers up, but here we go.
Your venue is a great place for play days, work days, or the big day. But managing the day-to-day isn't easy. Not when your time is spent juggling people, paperwork, phone calls and payments. Fortunately, there's Hallmaster, an online booking and invoicing platform for halls and venues of all kinds. Because Hallmaster is a cloud-based platform, there's no irritating software to install. Just hop online on any device, and daily backups and top-notch security ensure your data and privacy is always protected. With Hallmaster, you can easily manage customers, bookings and invoices from one control panel, and there's no limit to the number of bookings or administrators you can have. So, you can finally get everyone and everything involved in managing your place in one place. You can even integrate Hallmaster right into your website, giving customers a reliable calendar of events that instantly updates and displays the availability of your spaces in real time, so customers can book anytime. No more phone chasing, unnecessary paperwork, or dreaded double bookings. If you need a little help, or a lot, our friendly UK-based support team is just an email or phone call away. And, best of all, we don't take commission on any bookings, ever. So whether you're managing one room or multiple venues with room to spare, join thousands of people booking better every day with Hallmaster. Start your free 90-day trial at hallmaster.co.uk.
Okay, great. Hopefully you got all that. There's quite a lot packed in there. But essentially, yes, we're an online booking system which can integrate into your website. It will allow people to see real-time availability of your venue if you so choose. So we do have customers who use the system behind the scenes and not actually interface with the general public. But we've noticed, certainly over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, how people's booking habits have changed immensely, where everybody's going around on their phones ordering food. I was going to say airline tickets, not so many of those at the moment, but yeah, ordering all sorts of things, booking places, booking hotels. And that's where we come in, that you're not missing out on those bookings. And it just gives you also one central location where you can have different administrators logging in and managing the system. They can have different roles. So if you have someone who just manages the bookings, or someone who just does the invoicing, or both, or any combination of it. So although it's not bespoke software for your particular venue, we've covered pretty much most of the bases, and we've generally found if someone's got a slight thing which doesn't quite fit, then there's usually a way around it, but it's very flexible with regards to that. The invoicing side, again, means that you never miss out invoicing somebody. It'll highlight anybody who hasn't been invoiced for a particular booking or facility that they've used, and consequently you can then track to make sure they have actually paid you as well. Again, so if someone's ill or away, one of the other administrators or any of the other administrators can soon just step in and have a look and see where the last person left off. So that's essentially what the system does. Again, Brian is here with Little Paxton. I think I'd say you've been with us for 2 or 3 years now, haven't you, Brian? and again, they will be using it in a way very similar to hundreds of other halls across the country, but they will inevitably have their own slight sort of variations on how they do things. So again, it's very flexible with regards to that. I don't want to keep pushing the pitch because it's you know, Brian's got his presentation to do as well. But has anybody got any sort of questions initially? I mean, do you want to maybe put your hand up, and Lisa, I think you're able to unmute them, can't you? So has anybody got any burning questions at all? And if not, you can always email me afterwards.
Okay.
Anybody? No? So all
Maybe
clear?
There'll be an opportunity at the end as well, Bernard, for people to
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, great.
Maybe there'll be more questions formulated once they've seen Brian's presentation as well.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So you happy to hand over to Brian now, yeah?
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Just to say, we do an annual fee, an annual license for the system. So you haven't got any sort of frightening hidden costs or anything. You literally get what you pay for. We provide, as the video said, telephone and email support, and you know, we like to think we're pretty good on all of that and come back to you pretty quickly. So any questions, but the fees start at £137 plus VAT for just the booking system, and if you want the booking and invoicing, it's an extra £50, so it's 187 plus VAT. That works out at 224.40, I think it is, for the year. But again, we do daily backups of the whole system. There are free upgrades throughout the year as and when we release them, and again, you get ongoing support for your administrators accordingly. That's probably me done for the moment, Lisa.
Brilliant, thank you, Bernard.
Thank you.
Brian, so we'll hand over to you for your presentation.
Okay, hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Bernard, for that. I was expecting a big, strong sales pitch, so I'm quite glad it wasn't too strong. I will say that although you said your software isn't bespoke, it is indeed quite flexible. So I would imagine each hall can find a way to work with it. And as regards the price, well, we have both. We have the booking and the invoicing. And if you work that out, as I'm an accountant, you can see it comes to about 60 pence a day, which by any stretch of the imagination, you don't get much for that these days. You won't even get a quarter of a cup of coffee. So it's not a lot of money. And I don't know if people have printed out the presentation or have got it in front of them or have had a look at it. I'm always a bit reluctant to sort of read out presentations when I assume most people can read, but I would just sort of work my way through it. And as I say at the end, if people have questions or, you know, I say something that resonates with your situation, please at the end just shout out and we'll try and answer it. The background to us going to Hallmaster was quite simple. 3 years ago, almost to the day, our village hall required a new committee, and I was one of the people who volunteered, and because of my background I became the treasurer of the hall. The situation that we came across was that the booking and the invoicing was done totally manually by a paid administrator, and this was not really a great situation. There were no real accounts worth talking about. We weren't sure where we were with our billing, and we had no idea of what money was owed or what had been paid without, you know, going through all the bank statements. We were also using an external accountant that was costing over £1,000 a year. So all in all, we said we've got to do something about this, and we decided to go for a computer solution to divide up our booking and invoicing processes initially. I'll come back to that. To take our accounting in-house, and unfortunately we had to also get a new administrator for personal reasons. So that was the first action that we took. Then we set off. Excuse me 1 second. My wife is hoovering in the background. I'm going to have to tell her to stop because it's annoying me. Sorry, 1 second. Kathy! Kathy!
It's normally children chasing around. I've been on quite a few recently. I think the biggest one I was on was 153 people at the event, and some of them were unmuted, and there was all sorts of noises going on in the background. So
challenges.
Sorry, folks.
I think the other thing is cats walking past. I've
that's
seen
it. Yeah.
cats walking past.
Sorry about that. That's what happens
Thank you, Brian.
when it's domestic. Right, so where we were, but yeah, we decided, as I say, to go for the solution. We had luckily somebody on the new committee who was quite an IT person. Hello, Sue.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Is it possible for us to have your PowerPoint on share, please, Brian?
Well, I could do that, but I was intending actually to bring Hallmaster up in a few minutes, but yes, I can do that.
I think Brian's plan is to actually do some sort of almost live kind of interaction so you can see how the system works.
Okay.
That's why he wanted to have the presentation ahead
That's
of
fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll come just a little bit of background at the moment to this, if that's okay. Yeah, and as I say, we had someone who was very IT, or relatively IT savvy, i.e. was a bit younger than the rest of us. And he came back and did a very good presentation of how Hallmaster worked, and we said, okay, that looks good. The decision to do it was made in November of 2017 with a start date of January 2018. And as I've written on the presentation, this was a very short time frame. And I wouldn't recommend anyone, unless you were absolutely desperate, to do that in future in such a short time frame. That's a general point about all IT solutions. Anyway, yeah, in general, what I would say to people is that the movement onto a new software allows you, as your Hall committee, to review and improve your current processes and possibly bring in new ones. The setup part is a one-off process, and although, as with all software, you can change the parameters, if you start doing that halfway through or a year or two after starting up, what happens is you kind of lose compatibility. So all the time that you invest at this stage, if you decide to go for it, is the best investment of time that you can find. Trying to get it right first time, or what suits your village hall, is absolutely key. I've written down, with no disrespect to Bernard, that you don't really need expert advice as such to set up Hallmaster. They provide very good user guides, and I think combined with a bit of common sense and asking around, and hopefully a bit of background experience if you've used computers, you should be able to set this up yourself. But get as many people who are interested in this involved as possible. However, and this is a little plug for Hallmaster, I will say that the telephone support is really good. And I've worked with a lot of different softwares over many years, and I can't say that for many companies. A lot of them are very poor, but I've always found if we had a query that the response was really good and very helpful. So that's included, as you mentioned, in the annual fee, and I think that's something not to underestimate as you go along year on year. In Hallmaster itself, we're talking about that. So what I would like to do now is probably start to share the screen. Can I do that? Yeah, share the screen. Yeah. Okay, this is Hallmaster login. Just before we launch into that, clearly, as I say, the setup is key. There are a number of steps that you have to take within Hallmaster, as you would with any software. So things like creating your hall in the system, creating your administrators, putting in your hire charges, putting in your rooms, and what sort of activities you do. Do you have sports? Do you have socials? Do you have bingo? However framework you use, again, as I say, think about this. This is an opportunity for you to perhaps streamline some of the things you do or rationalize them. It's a good opportunity to think through how you do things and perhaps clear out some of the things that you found are real roadblocks at the moment, and maybe in many cases simplify your structures. Once you've done those various things, you then need to add in things like customers, etc. If you have bookings, then you load them onto the system, and then you're ready to actually start generating your invoices and so on. It all sounds very simple. In fact, clearly there's a lot of work behind it, but of course it pays off in time. This, I think, makes a lot of sense. So what we're going to do now is actually go onto our live system. So I think that maybe some of this waffle that you're hearing will begin to make some more sense when you see some of the things we talk about. So this is the login, a classic login with a username and a password. And I did try this morning, so here we go. Everyone see this okay? Yeah, good. Right, so essentially, let's work our way down from the top to the bottom. This first one, you can see where we are, top left, is called dashboard. I'm not an IT expert, but I know a dashboard is the kind of thing that's supposedly got all the important stuff on it, and at the end of the day, you can look here. So we're going to look at dashboard first, and this is all covered in that presentation I gave you, by the way, if you want to refer back to it later on. But as you can see, it's got three main sections up here. It has what I call the calendar, the financial part, and then user resources. So the calendar part is this part here. The financial part I'm calling this here, and the user resources is down here. So the most important one for most people, or I think sticking point for many halls, is knowing when can people book, or when people look online, when can they book, when is the hall free. You know, I'm planning ahead to have a wedding anniversary, or I'm getting married, or you know, somebody's being christened, or this, that, or the other. So the first thing is, and I'll show you this in a minute, there is a thing called scheduler, and this shows the calendar as it is. Now you can see here there's various options. I don't want to go into all of them. This shows our calendar. I'll tell you now, we haven't taken out all the bookings that got cancelled. I think that's quite good because it gives you an idea of what it looks like. But if I was somebody coming in wanting to casually book it this coming Saturday, which is that right? Where am I here? August 20. I'm trying to see today. Let me go to this. Not the dates look a bit crazy here, but I'm just trying to. It's the whole month. Yeah. So I can look at a whole month. Someone coming in can see this. I'll show you in a second the different format of this. But you can see there's a great deal on here that is of use. We've got in, for example, all our capacities. We've got our rates in. We've, in fact, only got 2 halls, a main hall and a meeting room. But we also have it where you can book both rooms. So again, this is all done during our setup. You may have something different. You may have 20 rooms, in which case they could come in here and you would see the calendar for each individual room. So this one is the main hall. If I go to meeting room, you'll see the calendar looks quite a bit different. So we can see for each room what is being used or what is not being used at any particular time. If I go to this one, that was the scheduler. This is the weekly diary. It's essentially the same information, but probably a little bit more user-friendly. And when someone comes online and looks at, and I'll show you this in a moment, looks at where can I, when can I book in the hall, this is normally what comes up on there. So if I can just take you out of that for a second, sorry, 1 second, everybody. And if I can, sorry about this, I'm not an IT guru, so bear with me. I wanted to take you to, so if we have halls for hire, Little Paxton. So I'm somebody that's going to book this casually. I think, oh, that's a nice hall, I'd like to book it. I wonder if they've got any days free. So I click on here, it comes up, this is halls for hire, and I can say, well, visit the website. And lo and behold, I click on the website and it brings me in here. Now I can move around, as you can see up there. I don't really want to go backwards probably. It brings up the current week, but I can go to next week, next month, and then over here is next year. So I can say next week or whenever, next week, I click on forever. I'm looking at something on Saturday, the 19th of September. Oh, it's green, there isn't anything booked there. Ah, right, okay, I've got a slot here. I'd like to book it. So the first thing is that people, independently of chasing you or phoning somebody or writing an email or whatever they do these days, and I know a lot of that still goes on, can look here and determine either it's available or it's not. Now, if it is available, it's relatively simple for them, we'll come to that in a moment, to then provisionally book that date. So that's how customers would come in, and through any channels that you create, whether you do halls for hire, whether you do Facebook, however you want to do online. I know generally it's a more mature generation, let me say that, which is looking after village halls, but we have to accept that below a certain age, this is how the world is now working. So yeah, you may still have to help people take their hands and all that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, a lot of people will want to do things online and can do it online. So that's the scheduler. That shows you all the rooms at a glance, and it allows prospective bookers to see when they search for a potential booking date and then go ahead and book it. I'm going to now shut the halls for hire. We're back into Hallmaster. If I, oh, sorry about that. Made a bit of a boo-boo there. Here we go. Right. I want to go back to, I'm taking a step back to dashboard. So that was the weekly diary. You see Hallmaster very friendly, reminds me how long I've got left on my account. So that's always, that's always good to know. If we look at the financial part, you can see here bookings, invoicing, customers, reports. You also look over here, I can see bookings and invoicing and customers. So to some extent, and reports as well. You can look here or here. I tend to be a bit old-fashioned and go here, but it's just giving me some highlights on what's going on here. And then, as I say, finally on this page, there's user resources. Very, very useful for training, setup and user guide. Let me scroll down a little bit here. Invoicing, how to go about invoicing, user management documents, reporting, etc., etc. And I think I can say quite fairly, Bernard, this is an area that's being developed all the time. And it's really very, very, very useful for you and sometimes also for your potential customers. So that's good. In general, I would say Hallmaster is a system that's still being well developed, and that's a good thing. So if we go from the dashboard to bookings. Right, what does bookings look like? Well, I don't know where you are. We have two types of people that book. We have regular clubs and we have one-off casual bookers. The objective here is to make bookings as easy as possible. Now, I'll say a couple of words about our regular clubs. Your experience might be different. We've worked with them, but really with a kind of mixed success. But that's more, as I've written here, to do with us spoon-feeding them, the age range of people in the clubs, and a general lack of interest or confidence with IT. So what we tend to do now is, in the last quarter of the year, for almost 90% of the clubs we have, we then create the booking series for the next year in advance. This is because they want to be sure that they've got their slots in there and that no one else can slide in and take that time. So we do that. It's actually not that difficult to do. It's not really how you should do it, but we're realistic, and it's kind of a service that we perform for them. So that's how we cover our regular clubs. For casual users, again, some are more comfortable with IT than others, but as I say, they can come through Facebook, Halls for Hire, etc., or they can call us up and we'll help them to fill in as a booking form, and that's it. Now, on the booking screen, there are various options. You can see here we've got 60 bookings, 55 confirmed, 2 requested, 3 cancelled. So you get an idea. Again, if I was looking at this, I'd probably say, give me the requested ones. Aha, okay. Someone here has requested, by the way, our hall has reopened under very strict conditions. And here's somebody come along and he's booked a thing. It looks very much to me like he's booked it. Oh, I was going to say he's booked it twice, but he hasn't. You'll see here, and I think he's probably got this wrong, so we'll have to come back and check, that he has booked, he's booked the meeting room and he's booked the main hall, but he could have actually booked the two together. And I also noticed that, looking at this, that he's got different times on there. So this is one that our administrator will have to go back and check exactly with the person, you know, what is it. But what happens when they book this, it shows up initially as requested. And then our administrator goes in and looks at the booking. And if there's anything that's odd or not right or whatever, we'd then go back and talk to the customer and say, what did you mean here? We can't amend the booking. Once the administrator is happy that the booking is correct in all respects, she will then confirm it. And the status will change from requested to confirmed, I believe. Bernard can probably put me straight if I'm not using the right word, but that's essentially what happens. Excuse me a second, I'm going to have a drink of water. So essentially that's what a booking looks like. We can see quite a lot even from this. It's a private event because this isn't a regular club. Where the customer is, he doesn't got a group name as such because they're not really a group. When he's booking, where he's booking, etc., etc. So that's pretty good. So as I say, we can scroll about here looking at different ones. Here, if I look, this is a booking for one of our regular clubs. You can see here the club name, the person that runs it. Okay, she's got in what it is. When it runs, now you'll notice here the difference is this is one of the series of bookings. This is booked in from, in fact, from here we've extended this booking from the 1st of January 2019, and her range of bookings runs right up till Christmas time this year. So this is one of the bookings we've created. We haven't created from 2019, that was done before. That's probably not a great example, so I'm going to look for a better example. Here's a better example. A bowling club. It runs every Wednesday, and as you can see, we've created a series of bookings from Wednesday the 1st of January to the 23rd of December, and essentially those slots are reserved for that club on that day at that time, and so on. So our bookings all appear, you can see them all at one time. Let me just talk a second about this for a moment. Yeah, when someone, a casual person, books the hall, as I said, there is a form which opens up online. They fill that form in, and then a kind of automated process, in a sense, starts up. The booking triggers an automated email process, and this is brilliant. This is where you're going to save a lot of time. And it creates the booking here, which, as I say, is a request, and this alerts the administrator. She checks that, as I said, resolves any specific queries, and when she's happy, she confirms the booking, and what happens is a confirmation email is generated, and it goes back to the customer saying, hall is booked for that date. At the same time, the person doing the invoicing, which has been me up to now, also gets that email, and then I go in and say, aha, okay, I've got a confirmed booking, and I can click on that booking. Unfortunately, I don't have one here to show you today, but I click on that booking. One second, I just need to move our little thing over here.
You could use the bowling one, Brian. That hasn't been invoiced yet.
Yeah, because they're not running at the moment. Okay. So I unfortunately I can't give it, but essentially there's a few. Let me see if I can find an example of something that's this chap's requested one. If I'm not going to do this, but just to show you, if I take this gentleman's one here, oh, sorry, oh, he's not requested. I have to have something that's confirmed. Sorry, yeah, just one second. No, we don't want to do that. Sorry, I'm trying to move. They've got a picture of everybody at the side. I'm trying to move out of the way. Let me take. No, that's not going to. That's not. Essentially, when we have when I have a booking, I can go on there. Let me just a second. I'm not explaining this very well. Hold on. Yeah, in Hallmaster, unfortunately, I don't have a confirmed one that I can show you. That's unfortunately really not good.
Brian, Brian.
Yeah, sure.
Just further up, if you scroll up that list of bookings, the bowling one hadn't been invoiced, but it was still confirmed. So yeah, that one there, where Graham Giddy. The one just below that.
This one here. Or this one?
Yeah, that's it, that one.
So if I click on this.
So if you go, you need to click on the invoicing tab on the right, don't forget.
Yeah, sorry, that's what's wrong, folks. I'm not showing you the whole screen.
That's it, there you go.
That's where I was at. Yeah, sorry, I was getting a bit lost there with all the pictures and things. Yeah, so if we were going to invoice someone, we come initially into the booking screen, we see that it's confirmed, and simply we go onto this small symbol here, which you'll see when I go over it, says invoicing. So let's see, and this is fictitious, but I'm going to invoice this gentleman now. So I click on here, and this takes me one step down from bookings into invoicing. So this is, and what I would have to do here is, you can see, I see the history of this particular club. I can see that I invoiced him on the 3rd of January, this invoice number, this amount, £286. I can also see, because of the colour scheme, that he's paid the £286. If you look up here, the colour scheme tells me if it's green, it's fully paid. If it was an orange colour underneath, it's partially paid, and if it was red, it would mean it's unpaid. So you can go in here and very quickly filter. You know, call up a whole load of customers and see who's paid at a glance or who hasn't paid, who's overdue, if you need to chase someone, etc. So it's very, very useful here. Now, I'm not going to do this as such, but I'll take you through the steps here. The first thing is that it's quite obvious. If I was going to invoice this gentleman, I have to create the new invoice. So step one is to click on here. So let's do that now. And this opens up my invoicing screen. The first thing is I've set it up so it just automatically gives me the next invoice number, so I don't have to worry about what invoice number it is. It automatically brings up today's date. Now, some people get a bit fussy about this. I have just accepted that when I invoice them is when I invoice them. I'm not, you know, you could invoice everybody at the end of the month or the beginning of the month or on a certain day of the month if you wished, but I just tend to say, right, this is the day I've done it. We have payment terms in, you can customize that all yourself, but this person is already there, and so essentially his details are here. Now, I have picked a bad example in some ways because this gentleman doesn't have an email. I know, how can anybody these days not have an email? But he doesn't. So normally the most important field is this field down here where we have the customer's email address, because once we have the email address, the whole automated process of booking and invoicing can take place. So if we didn't have that, and if we had in grahamgiddings@gmail.com, then everything that would be happening electronically, going to and fro with him. Anyway, let's not worry about that. That all comes in automatically. And then we are presented with the list of dates which have gone into the bookings. So if I was to say, right, I'm just going to pick, I know I haven't done it in June, it's picked up 4 times, the four sessions in June that I want to build him. And what happens then is, down below, it's picked up the dates, which are here, you can see again, where he's doing this. And because of the link to the rate card that we have, it's automatically put in the prices of each session. Now, if for some reason, sort of on the fly, Graham rang up and said, well, on the 3rd of the 6th, yeah, for some reason I'm going to do 3 hours. He hasn't ever done this, but I'm making this up. You can, of course, change this figure, but that's not something I would encourage people to do, but, you know, it gives you a bit of flexibility. So immediately the system has worked out what we've got to charge him. Now, we, in our kindness, have also created discounts. So we tend to give regular clubs a discount. So if I was doing Graham, I have a bowling discount. Oh, sorry, I didn't do a good job of that. I've just got a new laptop, by the way, so I'm kind of struggling a little bit with that, but that's okay. That's my excuse. So he's got a discount. He gets £2 off a session. So all I have to do here is say, well, on this invoice, he's got 4 sessions, add that on. I know it seems add on, it's taking it off, but in fact, it takes the £8 away from his 96. He owes us £88 for that. So essentially, pretty simple stuff. Last but not least, if I wish, I can put in some comments. Some people even pay before they get invoices. So usually I write in here, paid on blah, 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 or if it's a casual user, I usually put something in here like, because the casual users, we say they must pay up front, and you know, we want a deposit from you, but near the time, so I usually put that in. You'll see down here, there's also a text. So it says, "Dear Graham," this is what he's going to get in his email. "Dear Graham Giddings, please find an invoice for your booking." And then the system fills in the relevant information, reminds them of where they've got to pay, also very important, yeah, I would say. And then last but not least, hey, normally then I would click on here, save and send the invoice. So I've taken a bit of time, but really this is something that you can literally rattle out in a minute and a half. You know, it's worth always looking at it, but it's so very simple. Now, clearly I'm not going to invoice this gentleman. If I suddenly discover, I'm going to cancel that one. So that's okay, I've done that. And you can see the invoice has not been saved, so we're okay. So we've moved in from the booking screen into the invoicing screen. Then this is probably where I would spend most of my my time. So here we have, and this is quite good that we've reopened in some ways, that you can see this. This is, again, various options. I can look back. I have cleared off some old invoices, but I can look back over the last, is that the calendar year, Bernard? Oh.
Yeah, that'll be from today. It'll be a year's worth from today.
A year's back, yeah, okay.
Yes.
I can look at the last 6 months. As you can see, as we all know from COVID, activities gone right down. But if we're going here last month, so what does this show me? This shows me the invoices that we have raised in that time period. Now, again, these various I forget what you call those things, but where you look through, like
column headings and search.
Yeah, search. Sorry, thank you. Search. You can obviously resort the information there if you wanted, you know, by invoice number or something like this. So what is this showing me? It's showing me we've raised these invoices, which you can see are all running in sequential number. That one we just raised for Graham was 74, but we've cancelled that. So the next time we raise the real invoice, it will be 74. We can see here who we raised them to, what was it about, when did they take place, or when are they taking place, you know, what are they about? Is it the parish council? This is a dance club. This is somebody that's starting up there, a regular again. So she's been billed for the month of September. This is somebody who's booked the hall for, I think, a week, sometime in September. So we can see all that information on here. The green tells me this lot have paid. The red tells me these people have not paid. Would I chase them? No, because at the moment I can look in this column when it says days overdue and I see 0. So these invoices have, as we can see from the date, just been raised a couple of days ago. So this gives me a very good view of, you know, anything that's outstanding. I believe also I can filter, I can filter by various criterion, and you can, you know, sort of cut, slice and dice. But I find I usually come onto this screen and, you know, if I go there the last 6 months, there the same information will be included, but oh, sorry, did I do something different there? Last 6 months. 1 second. Right, sorry, I didn't go far enough down. So you see the same information. So it depends on what views you're looking for, but if you're ever looking for a particular thing, you can see who got billed, where, when, have they paid, etc. Yeah, okay, so I'm just trying to see, we've covered all of that. Payment, yeah, well, this is, I think, something quite new on here, a sort of payment screen that I don't think we had before. To be quite honest, I still use invoicing. On invoicing, we have the option here, over here with this little, this thing here to put in payments. Now, if I saw today that someone had, this lady here, for example, had paid, then I can go in here, click on that little symbol and put in the payment. So depending on how they've paid, here most people pay by bank transfer, but that's there. I can put in the amount, I can put in the date, I can put in a narrative if I wish, and I can add the payment. Again, very, very simple, easy to do, really very, very simple. There's all, as I say, this is a new feature, I think a newish feature, which I've never really explored, to be honest, but
Brian,
yeah.
just to cut across, it is fairly new. It's basically, if the way you do it is absolutely spot on. The payment side on the left there is really if you have anybody coming in and you want to apply one payment to multiple invoices.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, that could be a very useful feature. As I say, we haven't explored that, but that's good. We as I said, I've mentioned, nearly everybody's paying by bank transfer. 1 or 2 pay by check. We don't have anybody paying by cash. That's no longer happening. On the bank transfers, we try to encourage people to put the invoice numbers on with varying degrees of success. But usually either that or the name or even the amount, we can usually identify without any problem who's paid. And as I say, that then goes into Hallmaster. If people part pay, we can put part pay on the invoice, but then it shows up as orange, as I mentioned, and you can see that at a glance, exactly where we are at. Okay, the rest, folks, I know you'll be getting tired of my Scottish voice droning on, will be pretty quick. Yeah, again, on the reports, as I say, this looks very interesting. It's not actually something that we, as a whole, are using. Now, you may say, well, that all seems a bit daft. You've got all this information. But again, we've also taken the view, let's try and keep it as simple as possible. Going back to the very beginning, the more detailed you make your system, the more analysis you'll have, but also probably the more questions. So we thought there were more important things to do than wondering about this. The most important thing is people can book, people get invoiced, we get paid, the event takes place, and the person is happy. All of that is the kind of key. Really knowing how much was spent on, kung fu, or how much was spent on, tango, or how much was spent on karate clubs doesn't really interest us. We have a hall, we know it's got a multi-purpose, facility, and that's it. We're not really into analysing, all that sort of stuff particularly. So I think there's a lot of good things on here, but I think this is something Bernard would be better covering than I would. So I'm going to just flip over from that. And then finally, the admin part. Well, this is really where, as I mentioned at the beginning, you would set an awful lot of things up. This is a kind of area where it's principally used during the setup. Managing your hall charges, your rooms and facilities. I'll just click on a couple of things here. So this is our hall charge structure. So we have, as I mentioned before, a very, very simple kind of structure. We have it basically Friday to Sunday is usually when casual users are on, and from Sunday 4 p.m. to Friday 4 p.m. is our regular people. We have these kind of time slots. We've kept that as simple as possible so people don't mess up when they book. They still do, but that's life. Our charges matrix, very, very simple. Again, so that's how we view it. If you book it during the week, the main hall, it's £12 an hour. You book the meeting room, it's £9. If you book the main hall over the weekend, it's 22. This is still 9. If you book them both, then it's £25. So pretty simple, but okay. Activities, again, this is when people book. We classify it, as I say, we don't really analyse it, but just so we've got some idea of what they're booking. What we have to watch is that, you know, who's booking isn't booking you know, an 18th birthday party with alcohol or a 17th. So we you know, we're a little bit careful when people book. And then down here, administrators, who can do what. I won't stay on that too long, but there we go. Then finally, audit log would show you traces all entries in the system, etc. So yeah, to kind of round it off, if you're asking how I found Hallmaster after 2.5 years, is it perfect? No. Is there a perfect system out there? No. Is it value for money? Most definitely, yes. Does it meet the needs of village halls? I would say 99% it does. And now I'll be happy to take or try and answer any questions, ably assisted by Bernard, I hope. Yeah, okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Could you stop the screen share so we could all come back?
Yeah.
Screen, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. There we go.
Thank you. Great. So has anybody got any questions for either Brian or Bernard? Tessa?
Need to come off mute.
Yeah. I don't know if I heard correctly. I thought you said the administrator can't change a requested booking. It's the hirer that has to do the input.
It's actually the other way around. So once the booking is in the system, only the administrators have access to be able to make changes. So going back to Brian's example about the an 18th birthday, if you've got maybe a yoga club in one room and somebody tries to make a booking for a band practice, you might not want that going on. So it's down to the administrators to manage the bookings once they're in the system.
Even a requested booking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. At that stage, it is just a request. We still have the right, if we wish, to refuse it or accept it. So that's the status. I suppose it's like offer and acceptance, but they've requested it. But we're just simply saying, I mean, again, in 99% of the occasions we do accept it, or confirm it. But we should have a look at it. Otherwise, we would be a little bit, let me say, dilatory in our work. You know, we have to check out, because it's a facility for everybody in the community and around here, and you know, we always have that view. So
one more quick one. Does everybody who's making a request have to have a login and a password? All your potential hirers?
Well, as I said, depending on the generation, some find it hard. I've had people on sending me emails saying I can't do it, but normally then I would push our administrator to contact them, and you know, even the most, let me say, computer not a thin person can use it. It's the equivalent of a paper form, really. You know, it's like name, address. I think the only thing is email probably, and a few other details, so that they're logged on the system. But it's really for their benefit too, because they can then, if they do get a password, they can come back and look at things, and if they ever want to book again, which sometimes does happen, they don't have to do it all again the next time. They just use their login. So
yeah, essentially, Tessa, everybody who has a booking in the system has an account with your particular venue. It's a bit like when you buy something online, you can see your previous orders, so the customers can still go in and view their their bookings and any invoices that are due to be paid and payments that are being made as well. So it's just a sort of window into their accounts on your particular system.
I'm just thinking about people who are making perhaps a fairly casual inquiry, and that having to put in all your details and create a password can actually put people off doing that.
Yeah, I think if they're going to do that, then they'll probably phone up anyway.
Yeah.
In which case, they'll use a sort of more traditional method anyway. But it's essentially, you're right. Not everybody's going to necessarily do it, but that aside, it does still show them that it's there is availability at that time.
Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, Tessa, we wouldn't turn someone away. I mean, if someone calls up, as you can see how quick it is to bring this up, we can answer them, live and in colour when they ring up. But clearly, this is a system where you're trying to like many systems, kind of push the potential customer to do a little bit themselves. But it has benefits, because if you're using some kind of manual system, somebody rings up, what do? Do you look in a diary? It's kind of cumbersome, but at least this way you're both looking at the same thing. You can tell at a glance if the time is free for them or not, So.
I think Mia has a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, well, two questions actually. The first one was about the integration of the calendar with the website. So is it possible to have private bookings? So I quite accept that, the Zumba classes or Pilates or something, you might be quite happy to put down what that is, and that could be publicly visible. But if it's a private booking, is it possible just to sort of block out the calendar slot without actually saying what it is?
Yes, yeah. Can I answer this one, Brian?
Yeah, sure.
So basically, when someone makes a booking, say the general public comes in and makes a booking, the default setting is private. So even if they miss that section, they have a selection of either private, public, but hide their contact details, or fully public. So if they did want it public, they have to make a conscious decision to actually select that particular status of public or public with their details hidden. So consequently, on the calendar facing the general public, it would show as private event. Okay, no matter what the status is, it will say private event. On the administrator's side, it would show you what the actual event is. So you need to be logged in as an administrator to see it.
Yeah. Okay. And I have a second question. I noticed with Little Paxton Village Hall that you had, I think it was a number of categories. You had, you could book the hall, you could book the meeting room, or you could book the whole facility.
Mm-hmm.
And in one particular case where we're looking at, we might also have, for example, a kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody might want to book the kitchen with the meeting room, or they might want to book the kitchen with the hall, or they might want to book the whole facility.
Yeah, but
if somebody has booked the meeting room with the kitchen, does that then stop somebody from being able to book or put in a request to book the whole facility or the hall with the kitchen?
Yeah, well, this is one of those ones you have to, again, as I say, think out at the beginning of how you do this. We had exactly that situation where we at first set up the hall and the meeting room and didn't think about people that would want both and things like this. So you've kind of got to, and this is where, again, as I say, you've got to think out your processes. And I think also you've got to think in a business sense, what's the probability of that? I mean, how often does someone want to book the kitchen? If it's once every 3 years, do you really want to have that as an option to offer? You know what I mean? So I think somewhere you've got to look at your processes as well. And yeah, you'll have more than us perhaps, but clearly if someone books any part of the facility, it's blocked for the rest. So the other options, if there was a meeting room and main hall and kitchen and main hall, and someone has booked kitchen and main hall, or they can't then book meeting room and main hall. So, again, you've got to think this kind of through. What are the various parameters? And we still have that. We had somebody last year that wanted to just book a kitchen, and we said, well, we don't you know, we don't really have a great kitchen, so we don't book kitchens. You know, you book the hall, and if you want to use our little kitchen, but then they wanted to start I think they wanted to start a walk or something on it, and we said, oh no, that's not happening. You know, so you have to think through what are you letting out. You know, clearly you
also
could
the system's flexible enough to allow, we get quite a lot of our customers have kitchen sharing, so you might have 2 rooms with 2 different events, but they both want to use the kitchen, so the system can cope with all of that as well if you want to.
Okay.
Anne.
I've got a question concerning the invoicing. I'm aware that Brian is the treasurer, so he had a lot of input with regard to the invoicing. So I'm assuming from his presentation that the invoicing section is extremely important. So he would probably say that the extra £50 a year is well and truly worth it, and not to go for the basic option, but to go for the whole thing. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah, it would be a very fair assumption, because I think in year 1, in 2018, when we used this, and in 2019, we, through the various ways that we invoiced something like 250 invoices. Now, if you were to do it manually, I'm trying to think how you would do that without the invoicing thing. You would see the booking, but then presumably you'd have to take those details from the booking and put them either into an accounting program, or into Word, or into Excel, or into something, or I don't know if you still got a quill pen, or whatever, to send something to the customer. And then how do you keep visibility of that? Well, okay, I put it on a paper file, and then I've got to flick through, and whereas, you know, you've got everything there. This also, to a large extent, as long as you keep your head on, prevents you misbilling anybody. Again, I always, just because of my background, kind of have a rough idea in my head what it's going to cost them anyway. But because my price matrix is so simple, I know if somebody's booked both rooms, you know, at a certain time and it's £25 an hour, and they've got 4 hours, I know my invoice should be about £100. Therefore, if something else came up, I would think, there's something not right here in what we've done. But that is very, very rarely. So the system is once you've set it up, unless you're changing your prices a lot, and we haven't done that, we'll keep on automatically calculating the correct amounts. And that thing I showed with the discounts, you might not do that. We do that for regulars as a kind of a little encouragement. You may say, well, you're giving yourself a lot of work, but it's a little bit of psychology that we say, well, actually, you always see the rate is £12, but because you're regular, you know, you're getting something off. But they all get the same amount off. So there's no, you know, there's no infighting about, you know, they get more than us or whatever. That's just the way it is. And
I think the thing, Anne, really is Brian touched on earlier, is you can have a lot of different rates in there. So you can have maybe just your bog standard set of rates, maybe for regulars or whatever. You can have very specific rates for maybe the scouts are on an old rate, and you want to always apply that rate. But the beauty of it is the system actually links the booking to the invoicing. So when you go through, as Brian demonstrated, you just select the dates and it'll work it out for you, whatever rate those people are on. It'll work it out whether it's on an hourly basis or a fixed rate, and it'll just apply that for you at a time. And again, if you've got a customer that's got maybe does Zumba classes throughout the year, but then they've got maybe a private meeting or a private party, all of those can be included onto one invoice if you want to do it that way as well. So it's very flexible.
Yeah, what I think I didn't mention it is I've tended to for the regular people, invoice them for a whole quarter. Otherwise, I'll have even more invoices. You know what I mean? But and a lot of them say, oh, well, we only want to pay monthly, but that's not a problem. I say, well, go ahead. You know, as long as you've paid the 3 months, by the end of the 3 months, I don't care if you pay me £2 a week. You know, what I mean is they've got their patterns of payment, but it saves me, I don't want to raise an invoice every month if I can avoid it, you know. So the regulars, I would tend to bill them a quarter at a time. That helps your cash flow as well.
And that's before they've happened, rather than
before they've happened. Yeah. So
they're paying in advance.
From January to March, I would bill them in the first week of January.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And one thing we have found from feedback from customers, Anne, is we've got a lot of, well, not so many now, but in the early days, we had people with hugely complicated pricing structures. I think the most complicated, they had 57 rates or something for 2 rooms. I mean, it was, you know, good luck with that. But Brian's absolutely right. It did actually make, where they're taking over legacy, you know, bookings and rates, it made the committee rethink and make things a lot simpler, because, you know, as we all know, life's difficult enough as it is without adding more sort of complications. And you know, the system actually copes with that, with all those 57 rates that they do, but it's whether the people who have to manage it, whether they can cope, is a different question. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's Brian made a very good point early on about when you're setting up, it does help you rethink how you want to carry on moving forwards with operating the actual day-to-day running.
Well, we're setting up a sort of a new hall. It's a new church hall, so we're very naive about costings as well. So I was quite interested to see how much Brian was charging, and it'd be interesting to know from other people if they are comparable amounts, or was that too low or too high. It's just gearing it right before we start, really. So I'd appreciate any advice really from anybody.
I think again, hunt around, just do a little bit of research for similar facilities in your area, and you know, you don't want to necessarily be the most expensive one, you don't want to be the cheapest, but it's everybody offers the same thing, but it's all different, if you know what I mean. You've all got slightly different facilities and offer slightly different service. So I would just do a little bit of homework and just see what's around you. You know, I just think of it laterally. So don't just look up church halls, look up community centres, village halls, councils, Masonic lodges, Quaker meeting houses. I mean, there's all sorts of similar venues which will offer something similar to what you do. So that I think will probably give you a better understanding.
Thank you.
And, Anne, I'll come to you in a second, Sue. And if I can say, I did this exercise out of interest last year myself for all the local halls here, and it is a little bit like how long is a piece of string. There are some halls which from their, let me say, from their presentation, don't present themselves in a very great light. And there was 1 or 2 halls that I thought, oh, they're really top notch. But I think we're all paddling within roughly that sort of price range. Again, it's what will people bear? Our clubs most of them are people that are self-employed, say, and they've got to make money out of it as well. So, you know, it's there to provide things for the village. We want to keep it running, but at the same time, we're not there to, as a charity, to make fast profits. So it's, in our case, because it was a new committee, we kind of took on what we found. That's all I can say. And nobody's complaining. So, you know, it could be too low, but, you know, we're happy. We seem to cover our costs and make a little bit on top out of that. So, that under normal circumstances.
I'd absolutely agree with Bernard. When we've done this in the past with village halls, it's a really good idea to look at what's happening in your locality, simply because, as it's been said already, it is really difficult comparing village hall to another setting, because it is like comparing apples and pears. So it's really important to look what's happening in your locality, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to displace other groups either. So you don't want to, you know, just because you're setting up a new venue, what you don't want to do is then take everybody from the other venue to your venue and vice versa. So it's about increasing the capacity in terms of what's going on, rather than just moving people about. So there needs to be a really good search in terms of, you know, what is happening on the ground, and what are other people pricing their venues at.
Yeah, and the negative side of things as well, you can look at, you know, we've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tariffs, and you can instantly look at it, you know, coming in blind and see there's this great big list, and that's a big turn off straight away. If it's nice and simple, then it's going to, that in itself will attract people.
Thank you.
Sue, I think you were next, and then John from Oxford.
Brian, I think right at the beginning, you intimated that the time scale, the lead-in time that you had as a committee to put in place Hallmaster was tight. My word, but I read that as your sentiment. Are you able to give us a ballpark period of time that you would say, if you have this, I think, you know, given all the questions that need to be gone through?
Well, again, it depends how complicated things. I mean, there's always the personal element, the whole how complicated that is. If you've got a, let me say, a committee running it who are all pushing in the same direction, I would say if you give yourselves a quarter, that's 3 months from making the decision, then that is more than ample time. Clearly, as I said, we were under a different time pressure. You don't want to be too long, because I think people will lose interest in it. If you say, well, we're going to do this, but it's going to be in, you know, June 2021, then I think that's not going to work. But I think if you make a decision and then say, because there's things to do, you know, again, I would say you need to really set up a little project team. Look who's got the skills. So presumably somebody's got the financial bit, but somebody got the IT bit, and, you know, are you going to put Mary's nose out of joint by doing? You've got to think of the kind of psychological things as well. But I think 3 months is more than adequate I mean, we did it in a month. We made 1 or 2 mistakes when we started up, nothing that we couldn't recover from, but we could have avoided if we had a little bit more experience. I think 3 months would be adequate. Bernard, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, funny enough, we do a free trial, which is 3 months long. That's totally coincidental, but yeah, that's fair. It really is getting all your ducks lined up. It's getting the right people on board. Again, historically, from our experiences, there's inevitably 1 or 2 or maybe more committee members who are, should we say, blinkered by nostalgia and sort of insist on carrying on using pen and paper, and then wonder why they can't run the bookings because they've actually taken the bookings book on holiday with them, which we still hear stories of. So this obviously does away with all of that. So consequently, moving forwards, the other thing we found quite a lot of venues do is they'll have 1 or 2, maybe 3 people who do the actual setup, sort of project group who actually do the setting up. And again, it depends on how big your organisation is, but you have a core, you know, team of 1 or 2 or 3 who get it all set up and then present it to everybody and just hand it over, because as Brian quite rightly said, it takes some setting up like anything does. In the sort of, if you remember on the screen that Brian showed had the admin section, so I sort of call that the engine room. So that takes a bit of, you know, setting up and honing and tweaking and what have you. But once it's all up and running, the day-to-day stuff, as Brian was saying, it doesn't take long just to go in and check your requested bookings and issue an invoice and make sure they've paid. So yeah, it's certainly worth doing a bit of preparation and finding out what people want or how you want to approach it. And again, going back to Anne's comment about the pricing, that's where a bit of homework would be really worth, you know, really be invaluable to do, just to see how other people do things.
Thank you. And just to give you Fen Drayton Village Hall, and you can search for us online as Brian and Bernard have suggested. We've got 2 rates. We've got a rate for residents of the village, and we've got a non-resident rate. So that's one of the ways in which we do it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. That's really helpful.
I think it was John from Oxford next.
Yeah, hello, Brian.
Hi, John.
I'm intrigued by the fact that obviously when you adopt something like this, it actually changes a whole lot of other things. procedures and processes, pricing structures, all very interesting. Yeah, that'd be great. One of the things I'm interested in your case is that you have an administrator, I think, who is paid, and is this the person who not only would respond to communications from the customers, but would show them around and also would issue the hiring agreements? Presumably you still have to send out hiring agreements once people have been confirmed as booked and so forth. So there's a series. I asked this question because at the moment, as treasurer, I don't do invoicing. That's done by our booking secretary, who's a volunteer. And changing it around like this, you could see me as the treasurer doing a lot more work and our booking secretary doing nothing. So there's a lot of interesting changes that these sorts of things can bring about. So yeah.
Right, well,
who does the stuff like hiring agreements and what have you?
Yeah, okay, well, again, because of the nature of where we came in as a committee, as I say, we had an administrator who was paid. That didn't work out for personal reasons, but as we got this system, we decided that we would still have an administrator, and effectively she would do the front end. That is, she is doing was to do the customer contact, help with bookings, confirm bookings, etc. We, to be quite candid, paid this person less than the previous one because we thought that's what the job was worth. What that then meant was that I ended up doing the invoicing, etc., and also doing like the bookkeeping. We've actually just recently changed that. The lady who's there, we've got a new lady that's an administrator who's even better still. She's doing that front end, and she's also now taking over the invoicing from me. So what's then happens is that the treasurer role will simply be administering the bank and the bookkeeping, but that role will always have a tie back to the administrator. This is how we've worked it, because she doesn't see the bank. So essentially, when the money comes through from Mr. X, I will drop her an email and say, Mr. X has paid, £40. She can then go into Hallmaster and put that payment against the invoice. I was previously doing that for various reasons. I'm moving out of that, and she's taking that over. Now, she also, as I say, does the customer contact. In our case, she also does the key administration. We have a key box. So she changes the code on this, etc. So when we have a casual user, we don't actually, run around and give them a key or have them coming to her door. But she then says, right, you've got the key box, it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's your key. When they finish, they drop the key back in. In terms of, and you've hit a point I've really not thought about that, terms and conditions we have online. I'm trying to think here. So all our T's and C's are also online, so we don't send anything out to people as such. When you tick whatever box, I can't remember which one, you effectively say, I agree with everything you great people say. Yeah, we'll do it that way. So the T's and C's are all online. A recent example is obviously we've put on a risk assessment for COVID. That's gone online as well. So you have to make sure the T's and C's kind of are up to date and realistic, but that saves a lot of paperwork. With our regular users, a couple of years ago, I just said we were sending out yearly packs to them. I just said, well, there's a change. This is now an ongoing contract, indefinite contract. It can be terminated at 3 months' notice. Are you all happy with that? Everybody said, yeah, great. End of story. So I don't send them anything other than my best wishes. So
just to say on the terms and conditions there, John, basically when you set up your account, if you've got your own website, you can, if you've got your terms and conditions on your own website, you put a link in your Hallmaster account to those terms and conditions. So that can either be a page or a PDF document. And when you do that, what that does is it puts a tick box on the customer booking form, which they have to tick. There's a link to the terms and conditions for their reference as well, but they have to basically tick that to accept it. If they don't tick it, then they can't actually make a booking, in which case they'll need to contact you anyway.
So Bernard, can I just ask a question there? Because the one thing that we suggest to village halls is that they have their hire agreement and that it is signed by the hirer and by the booking secretary. That forms the legal binding document between the two parties. By ticking that box, you haven't really got any assurance that they are reading those hiring conditions.
Okay, can I do a quick straw poll? Hands up, who actually reads all those before they accept terms and conditions?
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, so on that, and I'm put my hand up, you know, as in I'm just as guilty. We did look into this actually, and on the government website we looked up the validity of ticking a box on a website, and under the government guidelines they said it's acceptable, it's legally binding. But personally, I would, if you're concerned about that, then you can follow it up with the booking confirmation or request and just say, look, okay, you've ticked the box, but actually we still want a signature. You know, fill in this form and return it to us. So it's a sort of belts and braces, you know, job really.
Yeah, so it's something you could build in, and you could perhaps build in an automatic email which sent terms and conditions directly to people. Would that be possible?
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, because I don't know how many pages we get through a year of physical paperwork going backwards and forwards to hirers. It's extraordinary. Thank you.
I think the other thing, going back to your question, John, was that with regards to who's doing what, is you can set different roles for your administrator. So whoever sets up the account originally, you can set different roles for your administrator. So you might have someone who is in charge of the bookings, and they can also create invoices, for example, and send them. So when it comes to the actual cross-checking of funds, then as Brian was saying, then you know, you could just have an administrator who does the invoicing. You can set things as read-only. So if you've got a caretaker who opens up, you could give them access to the bookings, but read-only, so they can see what's going on. They can print off a day sheet or a week sheet, who's coming, who's going. But they can't actually go in and physically touch the bookings themselves and edit them and make a mess of things, dare I say. But yeah. So there's a great lot of flexibility within that.
Right.
Just one thing I'd like to mention, just something that came to me there as well, was that how do your clubs see this? And at first we thought maybe our regular clubs would find this terribly onerous, but actually it's been very, very, very positive with them, because also because of the links through things like Facebook, it actually gives them an opportunity to advertise their clubs. So they can write things, they can put a little, I suppose, little videos on or whatever they want to do, and it actually opens up a new vista for them, where they suddenly reach a market that they previously couldn't. So it's been very, very positive for them. And the other thing is that they just love the invoices. When I see the invoices before that were done on Word, it was absolutely, it wasn't even professional, to be honest. And now they get a thing it's just so, looks so good that I've never had one single complaint about that. So a lot of positivity from their side as well.
I think Laura was next.
Needs to come off mute.
Yeah.
Hi.
Well, Laura, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's it. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think this is for Bernard. Oakington Sports Pavilion is very much like Little Paxton Village Hall, the type of bookings we have.
Okay.
However, we also manage a mugger, AstroTurf.
Yes.
And there'll be overlaps of times, and I can see the calendar getting very messy if we put the bookings on there.
Sure. So with the pitch there, is it sectioned off into different areas, or is it just one usage? How does that work?
It's one pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one pitch.
Yeah, so the system wouldn't allow for an overlap, but what other venues do that we've come across to have a similar situation is they'll say that your booking includes any sort of setup and takedown time. So consequently, that in effect is that sort of grey area, if you like. I mean, are they physically using it at the same time, or is it just where they're coming and going?
No, I think you misunderstood. We've got separate bookings for AstroTurf.
Yes.
To the village hall.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So you can set up where you've got, you know, main room, committee room, kitchen, whatever. You can also set up your mugger as well. So
right.
that can be put on there, no problem at all. In fact, we have some people, they have them where they're sectioned off into 3 different pitches, for example, and they just split that up as well. So you could hire section A and C, but leave B open, or any other combination. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And we have people doing tennis courts, and I mean, you know, the list goes on. But yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got Andrew next.
Hi. Yeah, I've got 4 questions, but they're quite quick ones. I presume that if a society says that they're on holiday and they don't need the booking, the administrator can just cancel it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Actually,
brilliant.
what we do there,
Brilliant.
Andrew, sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah, basically that was the first one. Second one is we invoice some of our users based on the number of people who turn up. And you can, I noticed on the invoicing, you can alter the invoice amount. So presumably you can just alter it to anything you want.
Yeah, I would probably use the line items on that, Andrew. So if you can set up a line item group saying number of people, depends on what event it is as well. You could set up different rates for different events. But yes, essentially that's probably the cleanest way of doing that. Just say we've had 10 people at £5. And
yeah, brilliant. Well, we have some groups where it is literally an amount for number of people who turn up.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, that's the second one. Third one is, can you export the financial invoicing data to Excel?
Yes, I mean, basically throughout the system, everything's exportable. On all the grids, you have an export to Excel function. And the reports, again, I know Brian hasn't touched on that, but essentially there's a load of preset reports in there, and you can customize those to however you want. If you want certain data excluded or included, and it'll export everything to Excel for you.
Brilliant.
If you want to import it into your own accounts package, you can. If you want to print off a pie chart of the results, you can do that. All that.
Oh, right. Okay. That's way more than we usually do. But just taking the gross income from each group into an Excel thing will be really useful. And the last point is that very often we will bump regular users out of the way if we've got a big booking. So how would we go about indicating to people that if you've got a wedding and you want the village hall for the whole weekend and the Friday, we will actually clear out whatever else is booked to make room for you, because it's worth our while doing it?
I think that one isn't so much to do with Hallmaster. There's more to do with communication. In a sense, I mean, if I have a regular, to be quite honest, I put the regulars on a point that they're most important. And this is where Hallmaster is very useful. This is why we also book the year ahead for our regulars, because if we didn't, someone might come along and say, I want this and this and this, and take some slots. It has happened actually on 1 or 2 occasions from regulars, and then we have a terrible job persuading everybody what to do. You can't book the hall more than once, that's for certain.
I take your point with that, Brian. It's just we have very often people sort of say, actually, my daughter is getting married and I'd like to have the reception in the village hall. And pre-COVID, our village hall was pretty much booked most of the time. And we have on a number of occasions asked regular users if they would mind, having a break just to make room for a big local wedding, and I suspected that we would have to deal with that on our webpage and sort of make it known, rather than the Hallmaster being clever enough to work it out.
Yeah, I think so.
And you've confirmed that. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah. Bernard, it looks a really good system.
Thank you. Good. Thanks.
Yeah.
One thing that I mean, just was a quick break that we've come across a lot in the early days. So we've been going for about 10 years, and as Lisa knows, we go around the country quite a lot, sort of demonstrating and supporting various groups. But historically we found it was quite difficult because of the sort of age group thing. But actually, looking forwards, the age group of or if you like, the demographics of the people has changed a lot over the last 8 years. And I can remember I was at a demonstration up in Newcastle. It was probably about 6 years ago now. And there was a lot of rumbling about, we don't want this, it's online, and, forget it. And there's this chap, I think he must have been in his late 80s, stood up and slammed his fist on the table and got everybody's attention rather rapidly. And he said, I don't know what you're all going on about. He said, we've got, our youngest committee member is 16 years old, and he does all our IT stuff. And when he goes off to get a job, he's actually on his CV, he's got the ability to put on there that he's actually part of the parish council. Well, what more do you want? It's clearly the way things are going. And I, again, urge you, if you're not too happy with doing the website or your social media, just get somebody to do it, and have faith in these youngsters that they are willing to do it. There are always youngsters out there willing to do it. We've never found that a problem, actually.
Yeah, to be honest, we had a few people say, no, I'm not on Facebook, I can't do it. And the argument with that was, yeah, that's fair enough. We're not pushing you to go on Facebook, but many of the people that want to book the hall, in our case, we're in a village with a lot of, semis and young families, are people in their 20s, 30s and 40s. And that's how they have grown up and are growing up, whether we like it or not. That's how it is. Therefore, it's a Facebook generation. And then gradually, as I say, all those things after a few months, all the kind of objections just melted away.
Also, the other thing was, if you are members of ACRE with the Cambridge RCC, you do get a discount. We've had an agreement with ACRE for the last 6 or 7 years, is it, Lisa? I think maybe more. And we've sort of worked together as channel partners. So we actually offer a discount off the annual license as long as you're a member of ACRE.
Oh.
Every little helps, as they say.
What is the discount?
It's £10 off the license per year, and we also give £10 to ACRE for each introduction as well.
Okay, lovely. So I think that's probably, has it concluded all the questions? I think it probably has, hasn't it? Well, can I thank everybody for coming along today and asking such interesting questions. And can I especially thank our speakers, Bernard and Brian, for very informative presentations this morning. I found this really useful, and it's been really useful for me. Thank you very much, everybody, and I hope I see you all again soon.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bernard.